Aloha, everyone. I'm Andrew Lum with the State Procurement Office, and welcome to this morning's SBO informational session on Hawaii Compliance Express. Okay, let's quickly go over today's agenda. For this morning's webinar, we'll first cover what is HCE. Then we'll review the history behind HCE, what life was like before HCE and what we have now with HCE. Next, we'll talk about the process for vendor registration and renewals. And finally, we'll look at HCE from the buyer perspective, and we'll actually get to walk through the HCE website. So what is Hawaii Compliance Express? Well, HCE, for short, is an electronic system that allows vendors doing business with state or county agencies to quickly and easily obtain proof that they are compliant with applicable laws. The HCE Certificate of Vendor Compliance, is used to meet the requirements of Hawaii Revised Statutes, HRS Section 103D, 310C, and Hawaii Administrative Rules, HAR 3-122-112. HRS 103D-310C states in part, all offers upon award of contract shall comply with all laws governing entities doing business in the state. Offerers shall produce documents to the procuring officer to demonstrate compliance with this subsection. The procuring officer shall verify compliance with this subsection for all contracts awarded pursuant to sections 103D-302, which are IFBs, 103D-303, RFPs, 103D-304, which is professional services, and 103D-306, sole source, and for contracts and procurements of $2,500 or more awarded pursuant to Section 103D-305, which is small purchase. Hopefully none of your desks look like this, but the goal of HCE is to kind of get away from the paper process. What the HCE Certificate of Vendor Compliance does is it replaces the 3 paper certificates vendors were required to submit. These are the Tax Clearance Certificate from the Department of Taxation and the Internal Revenue Services, the Certificate of Compliance from the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, and the Certificate of Good Standing from the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. Just to give a little bit of history behind HCE, Act 52 SLH 2003 required offerers to produce documents to the procuring officer to demonstrate compliance. Hawaii Compliance Express was launched in August 2005 to assist potential contractors with verification of compliance with state laws prior to receiving contract awards. In 2006, the State Procurement Office was awarded the National Association of State Procurement Officials IT Innovation Award, and they were the gold medal recipient of the Hawaii Compliance Express program. What the NASPO Award for Excellence is it's recognized as a premier achievement for innovative public procurement, and it recognizes groundbreaking state procurement programs. I want to mention Hawaii was the only state to receive the IT Gold Medal Award that year. Effective July 1st, 2007, the state of Hawaii reduced the registration fees 20%. It was previously $15 for vendor, now it's $12 for HCE. In July 2011, Act 190 lowered the requirement to verify compliance to $2,500 and above for small purchase. Okay, so what was life like before HCE? Before HCE, contractors had to drive down to the different agencies. This meant finding parking in downtown Honolulu, manually filling out paper forms for 3 agencies and the IRS, and waiting in lines to get the necessary approved paper certificates. Agency staff had to manually process all requests, and buyers had to contact vendors who then had to fax or mail the forms. So certainly there must be a better way to do this. Now with HCE, vendors can apply for all 3 certificates through a single web interface. Vendors register online for automated service for $12 per year. The HCE system allows IRS and DLIR staff to process vendor compliance requests, and DOTAX and DCCA statuses are checked instantly. The electronic certificate of vendor compliance shows real-time status of each agency, and state and county buyers have unlimited online access to check compliance of any registered vendor. HCE is located via the URL http://vendors.ehawaii.gov or through the SPO website, and then click on Hawaii Compliance Express on the right-hand side. In a moment, I'll walk you through the site. Okay, let's talk about cost. HCE is free for state and county agencies. Procurement personnel have unlimited access to HCE to check if their vendors are compliant and print the certificates for their use. For vendors, the annual subscription is $12. Registered HCE vendors receive a full year of service, automatic submission of information to pertinent government certifying agencies, automatic email notification of status changes, and unlimited access by state and county government entities to print the certificate for their use. Vendors with registration questions can contact the Hawaii Information Consortium, or HIC for short, at 695-4620. Live chat technical support is also available. And once the registration process is complete, it can take a newly registered vendor about 10 business days to receive their true compliance status. Renewal notices to vendors. Vendors will receive an email renewal notice 30 days prior to any application expiring. Each renewal email will state which application the renewal is for. Upon receipt of any renewal notice, the vendor will need to log into their HCE account and complete the renewal. There is no fee to process renewals for clearances from the individual departments. However, vendors will need to pay the $12 annual subscription fee to use HCE service. If renewals are not completed in 30 days, the status will change to not compliant. Okay. In this next section, we're going to kind of walk through this online. This is going to be for you folks, for state and county agencies. We're going to cover how to register for HCE, what to do if either you or your vendor forgets your password. We're going to look at where to find the frequently asked questions on HCE. And finally, we're going to actually check some vendor compliance statuses to see what they look like. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and go into the HCE website. Okay. So here we see the HCE homepage. On the left-hand side, we have live chat technical support that is available. It's just a click away if you have questions about the HCE system itself, or if your vendors have registration questions. However, if there are procurement-related questions, please contact the state procurement office. This is only meant for questions with the HCE system itself, technical questions. Okay, let's first review how to create an account. Now, initially, for both vendors and buyers, the process is going to be the same. To create an account, click the Create an Account link. Now, for buyers, there's another step to get buyer access. First of all, it is your responsibility to obtain any necessary approvals from your department, division, or agency before requesting access to Hawaii Compliance Express. Once your account has been created, you'll send an email to hce@ehawaii.gov with the following information. 1, your full name. 2, your department. 3, your government-issued email address. And 4, the reason you need HCE access. A confirmation email will be sent back to you when access has been approved or denied. Okay, let's go back to the HCE website. Okay, if you or your vendor ever forgets your password, there is a Forgot Password link on the left side. Just click on that. And it'll ask you for your email address, so you do have to remember what email address you used to create the account. But you enter that in and click Retrieve Password. Then you'll receive an email at that email address with a temporary password to access your account. Now, if you don't recall what email address you used, you'll need to call the Hawaii Information Consortium directly. Okay, now let's go ahead and check and see how we can look up certificates of vendor compliance. Okay, so the first thing we'll need to do is log in via the login link here below. Okay, so you'll put in your government-issued email address and your password. And you'll want to select Buyer Module. Okay, that'll bring you up to a search page where we can search by a few different things. You can search for your vendor by entity name, which is the legal name of the company, or by DBA trade name, their doing business as name, or by any of these other things, including FEIN or Social Security number. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a search here. Okay, here we see an example of a company who is compliant. We can access their certificate of vendor compliance by clicking on their link, the vendor name here. And here we see the certificate of vendor compliance. We have the vendor name, the DBA trade name. The issue date is today. And because HCE is real-time, the issue date will always be the day you pull up the certificate. Here we have the overall status of the company. Down below, we have the status of compliance for vendor by the department. So as you can see, this particular company is compliant with each of the 4 departments. So their overall status is compliant. Okay, let's find another company here. Okay, here we have an example of a company who's not compliant. This particular company is not compliant with the IRS. So their overall status is not compliant. Even though they're compliant with the Department of Tax, they're exempt from the DCCA, they're compliant with the DLIR, because they're not compliant with one of the departments, their overall status will be not compliant until they can correct that. This particular vendor is also exempt from the DCCA. And if you're curious about these departmental statuses, down below there's the status legend, which includes what the description is for each of the departmental statuses. For example, if you're exempt, that means your company is exempt from the requirement. Compliant means the entity is compliant with this requirement, or the entity is in agreement with the agency and actively working towards compliance. Pending means the entity is compliant with the DLIR requirement. Submitted means the entity has applied for the certificate but is awaiting approval. So you'll probably see this soon after the vendor just submits their application. It'll likely be the majority of these will be submitted, meaning the agency is still reviewing the application. And finally, not compliant means the entity is not in compliance with the requirement and should contact the issuing agency for more information. In a minute, we'll go and look at the contact information to see what the various phone numbers for these departments are and how the vendor can reach out to these departments. Let's do one more example. I'm going to do a search here. Okay, here we see an example of a vendor whose HCE subscription has expired. Now, if you try to click through to their Certificate of Vendor Compliance, you won't be able to. It'll say the company's subscription to Hawaii Compliance Express has expired. No other information is available. So the vendor will need to log into their HCE account and renew their annual $12 subscription. Okay, so this slide shows the overall compliance statuses, the various ones you could have, either compliant, expired, or not compliant. If the overall status is compliant, you may print the Certificate of Vendor Compliance for the procurement file. Note that it may show as exempt or pending at the departmental level. If status is expired, the agency cannot access the Certificate of Vendor Compliance, as we saw. The vendor will need to log into their HCE account and renew their $12 subscription. If the vendor has completed all renewals required by HCE and are still showing as not compliant, the vendor must contact the respective department to resolve the issues. Department contact information can be found under the Contact Information link on the HCE website. And once the issue is resolved, the updated status should be reflected in the Certificate of Vendor Compliance within 24 hours. Here we see a screenshot of the different contact information. Actually, I think I'll go into the HCE website and show you where that is. Okay, so if we start from the home page, it's all on this left-hand side here. You'll see links for frequently asked questions, contact information. Here's where all the different departments' contact information is, and also contact information for the Hawaii Information Consortium. So if a vendor is not compliant with one of these departments, say the IRS, for example, they'll want to call this number directly. And it really does have to be the vendor who contacts the department. It can't be you, as much as we want to help them because of confidential information. These departments will only they will only respond to the vendor directly, and it does have to be a particular person within that company. They won't just speak to anybody. So it will have to be either the person who created the account or a designated officer of that company to receive tax information. I also want to point out the frequently asked questions link here. If you ever have any questions about HCE, this is a good place to get information. Down below we have the different questions that are asked quite a bit. So feel free to take a look through this if you have any questions on Hawaii Compliance Express. Okay. Okay, looks like we're getting through a little bit early today. I just want to review the top 3 takeaways from today's session. First of all, if a vendor has completed all renewals required by Hawaii Compliance Express and are still showing as not compliant, the vendor must contact the respective departments to resolve the issues. Secondly, buyer access requires a couple of steps. First, you must create an account in HCE. Then you also need to email HCE at hawaii.gov and include the reason you need HCE access to get buyer access. And finally, please do advise vendors to register in HCE early if they haven't already done so. This will help avoid delays in awarding. Please remember that it can take a newly registered vendor about 10 business days to receive their true compliance status.